Okay everyone, we're back today with some mushrooms. We've got 3 different kinds here. This one, don't really need to have that in the scene right now because we're going to be doing something different with the shiitake mushrooms. But today we're going to be doing some mushroom buckets with the lion's mane and the oyster mushroom. So we're got a couple buckets here from our trusty old Canadian Tire. We've got some natural hardwood pellets. These are all natural, and they're not the kind used for heating your house. They're the kind used for like a smoker or a pellet grill, just because it's more like food grade, so good to use. We're still going to sterilize these or pasteurize these with some hot water. We don't like to get the temperature more than about 175, so we're going to aim for around there. We'll pour some of these into a bucket, add the hot water, let it absorb the water, sit for a while when it cools, and then we will go ahead and drain that water off. So we'll get to that now. So we're going to pour these hardwood pellets into this bucket. I've got another bucket with holes in it that we're going to use. Once this fills up with water and it absorbs a lot of that water, we'll dump it into the other bucket, all clean, just so we can drain some of that water out. And we want it to be, you know, wet, but not to the point where it's dripping out water, right? So first off, enough for now. We'll get our hot water. Okay, be real careful doing this. You can see it's going to expand quite a bit. So it is really starting to grow. I'm going to add a little more water. It uses up quite a bit of water actually. And it'll continue to rise. Let's just get... Okay, there we go. I mean, there's no set measurement for the amount of water that I'm using. Just try to get full saturation, and then we're going to drain that water out and let it get to room temperature. Okay, I'm going to add some coffee grinds to this. Oh. I mean, you can add more than that, but just gives a little bit something extra. Got our bucket here. You can see the previous bucket really filled up and it's nice and damp. It's cool now. It's cool to the touch, so it's settled down. Ideally, you don't want to touch this material like I just did. Put on some latex gloves or whatever, and then you can start scooping it and filling your bucket. But what we want to do first is drill some holes in here. So this is just shy of 1/2 inch. Ideally, you want to have one about 1/2 inch. Do one here. And we're just going to go through and do a couple holes. So that should be good. And I'm going to use a smaller bit to get some holes in the bottom, just so you could drain some moisture out. And then we're going to take some surgical tape. I guess you could use hockey tape or something like that, and cover these holes over before filling this up. Just get these little bits out of here. Clean hands, and try to keep everything clean. And it should go pretty well. But these little bits you don't want to have on your bucket. We have a much smaller drill bit here. This is an 11/64. I'm just going to do maybe 5 holes on the bottom just for some extra drainage. There we go. I'll start by putting a paper towel down on the bottom, just so none of the material is going to fall out. Clean paper towel. And today we're using the oyster mushrooms. These are from Happy Caps. They're, I believe it's Nova Scotia. Could be Ontario at this point, I'm not sure. But they give you a nice kit. They've always sent me really good stuff. Never any complaints. They're my company of choice. But look at the look at how well this is colonized already. And this is really one of your home growing kits. It's meant to be put on your countertop and misted. but we're going to be using it for a little different application today, just to try to get one of these buckets going. So let's take this tape off. Okay, so you can see here, very well colonized. Looks really good. Okay, so we'll start by taking our growing medium, and this is the hardwood pellets and coffee grinds, and we're going to start putting some of this on the bottom. We'll just get about a 2 or 3 inch layer. Right, you kind of have it packed down, but not too heavily packed down. And we're going to mix some of our, what we're using as a grain spawn. We're going to mix some of this in and just do it in layers. So, wow, really good. Looks great. So, crumble some of this up. Spread it out around the bottom here. Exact amounts, I'm kind of just eyeing it, but you can see what we're doing. And then we're going to add some more of this and get it in there. So, it's nice and damp. And then we'll get another layer of grain spawn and just layer this over and over and over again. You want everything to be around room temperature for this. Not too hot, not above 80. Ideally a little cooler if you can, but it's not the end of the world. We're hoping that in about 2 weeks' time or so, this whole thing should be colonized in a nice white mycelium color. Hopefully not contaminated, but we'll wait and see in 2 weeks. But that's the goal of this at the moment. We'll get the lid on this, and then we'll start taping up these holes. Okay, and we're going to be using some of this hockey tape just to cover these holes. We're using hockey tape because it's like a fabric and it breathes, but it should stop anything from falling out of the holes out here. So we'll just clean this up on the outside and go from there. So here you can see we're starting to put the hockey tape over the holes. And that's just to keep a lot of the material in and to stop anything from outside getting in. This stuff still breathes well enough. And we'll take this bucket and we'll probably spray it down with a mister about once or twice a day. At least once a day, but ideally twice. There we go. Last little one right here.
Got one more on the other side.
Okay, yeah, one that I missed. Okay. So, there we go. This one's done. So one mushroom bucket, and in about 2 weeks we're going to open this up and we're going to take a look at the mycelium mass inside and see how it's colonized. And then we can take these little guys off once we get colonization inside. And we should start to see some mushrooms popping out right from the little holes that we've popped in. But we'll come back to this in about 2 weeks. Right now I'm going to use the second bucket. I'm going to do the exact same thing with this lion's mane. And we will see. Keep in mind, lion's mane, the mycelium mass is never going to look as colonized as what you see with the oyster mushroom, but it's a bit maybe it's a bit more wispy. But this still looks good. We should still get some colonization out of this, and we'll just go from there. So this one's going to go next into the next bucket. We'll do the exact same thing that we did here. So we've got both of our buckets, 5-gallon buckets full of the wood dust or wood pellet medium that's being hydrated and then cooled to room temperature. We put a thermometer in, make sure it wasn't above 75 degrees, so it's nice and equal with what we're getting in the room here. We've got our lion's mane and our oyster bucket made, and then we also have the hockey tape over the holes, as you can see. We're going to come back and mist this in a little bit, but we're not going to start that process right away. Now, once again, this is a bit of an experiment for ours. We want to see if we can increase the amount of mycelium growth from one of these kits. These kits are normally meant to just have a bag and mist the bag and grow the bag out, and you get maybe a few flushes, 3, 4, 5 flushes out of it. But we're just trying to increase the amount of harvest we get out of one of these. Yes, it's going to take longer, but we're hoping the reward is going to be worth it. So that's what this is all about. And we'll come back and check on this. Now, we'll give an update after about 2 weeks. We'll actually open these up and see how the mycelium growth is. We're not going to open these up for that entire period because we don't want to let more light and particulate in the air and things like that in it, which could possibly contaminate it. So we'll put these over in a corner of the room, not in an area that's too cold. We're going to keep it at around room temperature, maybe just a little cooler, and just let that stuff grow inside the buckets. And then when we see the mycelial mats growing in here and it looks good, then we can tear this tape off. And then as the growth starts to come out of here, we'll start seeing the mushroom pinning, and then we can go and really mist it and make sure we're misting at least twice a day once we see the pinning starting to happen. But in the meantime, we're just going to let the mycelium grow in these buckets and leave it at that. And we'll come back with an update after 2 weeks. Okay, we're back. So it's been 16 days since we split the mycelium block up into our wood pellet buckets. And we've kept the tape on this whole time. So we're going to take a quick look and just check our mycelial growth. I mean, you don't really want to do this too often, but let's just see. Okay, yeah, look at that. It's definitely growing in there. So, what this means now is we're going to take some of these little pieces of tape off, and we might see some growth around these. Maybe this one will have some. Yep, you can see it's got a light white fuzz. And we're going to mist this down a couple times a day just to keep a nice humid environment for these. We're going to let them grow. We're going to do the same thing with the lion's mane. Now, just bear in mind that the mycelium growth on the lion's mane is not going to be as obvious as the oyster, but it does still colonize. And we should be able to see maybe something here. Not great. You see mild. I'm in a bit of a dark here, so not nearly as obvious. It's just a light whitish hue in the shade. But we're going to let that grow as well. And hopefully we're going to be able to start sprouting some mushrooms from these entrances that we've put. And that's from splitting up one of these guys, just to maximize the efficiency of this. So we'll see if it goes. It's really exciting. And yeah, we'll be misting this once or twice a day and just watching these mushrooms go. And we'll give you updates in the next couple of days on how they're growing. So it's been a couple of weeks since we've taken the tape off, and you can see here we've got our oyster mushrooms pinning. They're starting to pop out through the holes, so it's looking like it's been successful. We actually didn't realize they were all coming through on the dark side of the bucket. In the front side, we didn't have anything pop up, so there was so much light exposure that they want to be in the dark. And what we've done as well is we take a bag and we just mist the bag a bit, and we're throwing this bag right back over top. Don't mind my robe, it's like 7 in the morning, but here we go. We get it covered. And one last thing we're going to do as well is we're going to put this in a box. We don't have the luxury of having a dark room to put this in right now. So we're just going to throw this box over top just to give them some additional darkness. And I think this will help with getting them to sprout. So here we go. I'm just going to keep it in here. We'll mist in here once or twice a day inside the bag. And hopefully this will help facilitate those mushrooms to start sprouting up. There's still a lot of airflow through the top. And we'll keep a close eye on this and watch those mushrooms progress each day. There's the mushrooms. It's the second or third day after you've seen them starting to pin. They're really taking off now.
That one.
What size is this one?
It's nice. Oh, that's the blue oyster.
Yep. We are 5 days in after seeing the first signs of pinning. And you can see there's quite a bit more growth here. I accidentally pulled that off when I was lifting the bag up. But here we are, we've got some nice mushroom growth. They're actually starting to look like little oysters. So pretty exciting. They've got a little ways to go, obviously, but nice to see the growth here. Okay, so we've got some oysters that have come up. You can see you've got a nice little cluster. I'm gonna pop this off. So it just popped off. I actually made the mistake. I was using the cardboard box over here and I knocked off a couple of these that had started earlier. So it set us back a little bit, but you can see it has worked. We've got some beautiful oysters that have popped up in the bucket. And this is exactly what we were going for. There's a few more holes with a few more spuds popping up, but these guys here are a finished product. It looks really nice. Really happy with the outcome. There's more on their way, but I mean, we're only going to eat so much at the moment. Be careful. We also let some of them dry out by accident. We weren't doing enough maintenance on it, and a few dried out. And that's all our fault. We just weren't watering them and coming and checking on them periodically. Busy time of season for us. But it's nice to see that we do have some. And a lot of this material in here, this is a full bin. We're going to take this and we're going to make some mushroom totems with this material and see how they grow and see if they take off as well. So really nice to see the oysters have actually grown. And you can see here's the little hole that this whole thing grew out of.
Look how small it is.
Yep. So it's not perfect. We could have harvested a lot more, mostly just because of our neglect, but it does work. It's really nice to see something like this coming up, and there is more that's popping up. So really good. So the lion's mane, it was starting to sporulate. We were getting some good signs, but you can see there's some green mold that popped in. So it looks like trichoderma got into the mix. So this, we're going to discard this, and we'll try this again and just do some more, a little bit more sanitation up front. But the oysters, generally a little bit easier to grow than the Hericium. So very easy, very nice result. More of these coming up. This one, we do believe this is possible to do, but it looks like just because we had a different kind of competing fungus get in and cause some issues, it just didn't work out. So partially successful, not successful, but there is potential to make this successful, I believe.